friends, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a new video where I'm going to talk about Stranger Things 3. I literally just finished watching this season. It was so intense I couldn't even watch it in one sitting, and I'm gonna talk about it right here, right now. All about my feelings, all about my thoughts. There is so much, so without further ado, let's get into it. But before that, spoilers ahead, you've been warned. If you haven't watched the season, watch it before watching this. I will be talking about all of it. This is like the Hawkins lab. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll be dead. All of you who haven't watched this season, bye-bye, go and watch it and come back. I'll see you later. But you who have watched it, let's go that way. I think I'm gonna talk about just a little bit about my thoughts overall, then about all the episodes, then about characters, locations like the sets and music. Of course, I have to discuss the end, and then just like overall like what I think. First of all, I just think this season was brilliant. You'll hear why, but I really loved it. It was definitely the most intense one out of the 3 that has been released. I couldn't watch it in one sitting. I was so stressed. I could barely breathe and my heart was beating. It was very intense, very exciting, very nerve-wracking, but so good. Now I'm gonna talk about why I think so. While I was watching this season, I wrote down notes about each episode. I'm gonna be looking down a lot because I have my notebook here, so I'll be reading what I wrote down. The first episode was so far my favorite out of all episodes of Stranger Things. The first episode told very well where things are now. Showed us a year back what happened at the Hawkins lab. There was Russians, they opened the gate to the Upside Down. It showed us that, just like a little glimpse, okay, something's wrong and something's happening again in Hawkins. But then it showed us what is going on with all the characters, and it showed the new mall, how Steve is working there, and now Jonathan and Nancy have jobs, and Eleven and Mike are dating, Lucas and Max are dating, and it just showed very well where all the characters are right now. Even Dustin has a girlfriend, which shook us all. I was actually expecting this season to be a very like school themed, because when we first heard about this season, it said that all the kids will be high school age, so they will be in the same high school with Steve and Nancy and all of them. But I was actually really excited that this will be like a summer vacation, 4th of July themed one. This season was based in 84, 85, like in those years, and it looked amazing, especially now with the mall, because it really brought out the whole 80s vibe very well. I'm gonna talk about the locations and stuff later, but I had to say that because that really stood out for me in the first episode. I personally felt really, really happy seeing everyone. You know, just like everyone's so happy, but then things went down the road to hell. The episode is left in a big cliffhanger with Bill. Nothing big happens in the first episode. It's kind of like foreshadowing what's happening next, but in the second episode, the rats are shown more, and the familiar door of curiosity is opened a little more. Yeah. This is the episode where Elle gets a makeover and she dumps Mike's, which I really loved. I started to think, should they even be dating? Should Elle be dating? It really came up how lost she is and how she has been defining herself with the perspectives of like Hopper and Mike, but now she has Max, a new friend. She really tells Elle to define herself, which I really loved. I gave a big round of applause for Max because she is a very awesome character, and this was actually the part where my favorite part of Stranger Things starts. I love how everyone's always in little groups doing their little mission, and these little missions all come together in the end. The second episode is where this starts to happen. There is Dustin, Steve, and Robin, with Erica later, and then there's Max and Elle and the boys and Joyce and Hopper. Episode 3 is where Joyce pulls out the tinfoil hat again, and I love Joyce for this because I really feel that. I'm a big overanalyzer. I really care about Will as a character, and in this episode, Lucas and Mike were only worrying about their girlfriends, and Will feels very lonely. And I think this episode is the one where Will and Mike are fighting outside, and Mike goes, "It's not my fault you don't like girls." I don't know, is it foreshadowing that Will is gay? But I've been really feeling this and having this vibe since season 2. I don't know, but it would make sense because in this season, Will looks very sad around Mike and Elle. If he has a crush on Mike, that would make a lot of sense, but I don't know. I'm not gonna assume anything. This episode made me really, really sad for Will because he's clearly very, very lonely, and I can really feel that. Will and Elle both realize something is wrong. Mrs. Driscoll goes crazy. This was also the episode where the whole Scoop Troop Russian search starts. It was really interesting. I think the Scoop Troop was my favorite group in this season. Their story, I think, was the most interesting. It was really fun to follow. Episode 4 is the sauna test where they realize that Belle really is flayed by the Mind Flayer. Robin finds the map, and I think this is the episode where they go into the storage room. Nancy, well, she's been working in the Hawkins post, and she's been fired, and Jonathan has been fired, and her mom tells her to keep digging and keep going for the story, and she does. The Mind Flayer's strength is really shown in this episode, I think, and you can really see how Elle might not be strong enough to fight against it. I can't really remember much about this episode because I didn't write anything down, but then we go into the episode 5 where the kids realize that it's the Mind Flayer, it really is the Mind Flayer, and that there can be more than just one flayed person. It's not just Bill. They realize that there's Heather and blah, 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 a lot of people. Later they see that as well, but before that, Hopper and Joyce find a part of the lab and they kidnap Alexei, who Hopper calls Smirnoff, which I found really funny. They go back to Murray, and I was really excited to see Murray. He's hilarious and he's the best matchmaker in Indiana. And the Scoop Troop goes underground into the Russians' lab fortress place. Stress, 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 stress. Max, Will, Lucas, Mike, Elle, Jonathan, and Nancy go into the hospital to meet Mrs. Driscoll. I think they wanted Mrs. Driscoll to go back to the source of the Mind Flayer, but it doesn't go that way. There's a cute scene between Mike and Elle when they make up, but then there's also the intense scenes with some people from Hawkins Post attacking Nancy and Jonathan. We finally see the Mind Flayer going into this one big, not as big as we see later, but this one big monster, and this whole thing starts to kind of open up. In episode 6, I started to think, what the hell is this Mind Flayer monster made of? The monster escapes in this episode as well. Steve and Robin are held as prisoners in the Russian lab. Steve is so beaten up. I was just screaming on my sofa because I love Steve so much. Hopper, Joyce, Murray, and Alexei are going around together. I think they steal the car in this episode. They've been interviewing Alexei, who was actually really sweet. Like, I felt really bad for him later. Elle tries to find Billy with her mind. She finds out that this whole thing, like the big monster and the flayed, are all for her to kill her to end this whole thing. In the end of this episode, I was mesmerized by Dacre's acting. Like, wow, he's good. He's so good. He deserves more. Episode 7 includes the fun fair. It looks really fun, but when you know that there's a lot of things going on, group with Elle, they're attacked by the Mind Flayer, it's not really that fun. Scoop Troop gets out of the lab, and there's a cute little boop scene between Dustin and Steve. Drugged Steve is such a cutie. It was constant stress. Like, this episode was just me going and then that Robin and Steve talk in the toilets, and we find out that Robin is lesbian, I think. And then there's like just the stress in the carnival. Alexei gets shot, and there's just a lot happening in this episode. I've been just writing down stress and constant stress, so yeah, that was stress. And then there's the last episode, the 8th one, the Battle of Starcourt. I mean, I think that explains itself. And then there's the ending, which I'm gonna talk about just a tiny bit later. I think the episodes were really well thought out, and I loved how this story kept growing into one. It really is like a puzzle for your mind, like what's happening, and it comes into one, and it makes sense in the end. And I love that they went with this kind of storyline again. But yeah, characters. First new ones. We have Robin, Alexei, Mayor Klein, and Grigori. I think Grigori, okay. Grigori. I think out of all the new characters, Robin is the most important one. She's the girl working with Steve at Scoops Ahoy. She is a massive part of the story because without her, Dustin and Steve wouldn't have crack the Russian code. First I was kind of like about her and the thought about her, because I just thought that she'd be Steve's new love interest, but no, she was a massive part of the story and I really enjoyed her character. Next, Alexei, the scientist who gets the job to open the gate. First I hated him because I was like, okay, he's gonna be this horrible character, but then we find out that he's just a scientist. He's just doing his job. He's just trying to stay alive. We see what happened to the scientist before him. He was killed in front of Alexei. He is actually such a sweet character. I felt bad for him because he deserved better. Then we have Mayor Klein. From the trailer, I knew that he's an asshole, and he was. And I mean, it wasn't his fault 100%. A lot of it was his fault because he was a politician who wanted power, but also there was a lot of blackmailing against him and stuff. But yeah, we don't like Klein. He wasn't the most interesting character, I think. He was a kind of a key character for Hopper to get to the Russians. And then we have Grigory, who basically is just a murderer. Yeah, there's nothing to like about him. He wants to kill everyone, and he wants this secret mission of opening the gate to continue, and he wants it to be a secret. We don't like him. I'm glad he died. And then of course we have the old characters, and we see the old characters growing and how they've already grown and evolved. I love this part of the show because in the first season the kids are really kids, but now they're teenagers and they have their minds, and like they're not kids anymore. And it's really fun to see their relationships evolve and to see these characters grow. Even Hopper and Joyce, there's definitely something between them. We see that. We even hear that because they're planning the date. Like, they're also changing and the relationships are changing. It's really interesting, and Joyce is recovering from the loss of from the loss of Bob. But what I found the most interesting is seeing Will, because this is the first freaking season where we properly see Will and who he is. In the past seasons, Will has been either missing or cursed, basically. He still has trauma and he can feel the mind flayer in the back of his neck, and he can kind of feel it, and we see how kind of on his toes he is. But I think that's also part of the character, and this is where we finally see this character and what he's like. He has his own mind, he has his opinions, and he thinks and he has feelings. Will might be my favorite character out of the four boys, and I loved seeing more of him in this season. I can't wait to see more of him because I still think we don't know a lot about him. One of my favorite relationships in this season, again, is Dustin and Steve. They just have the greatest friendship. I love them so much, and it's just really fun. Of course, I loved seeing Maleven again and like Lucas and Max together, but just like the friendships in this show, that's the gold. Also, I love the relationship between Hopper and Elle. Hopper really reminds me of my dad, like really reminds me of my dad, and we are a bit similar to like Elle and Hopper. It's always really fun to watch this show when there's Hopper and Elle as kind of like the parent-kid position, because it really reminds me of me and my dad. And kind of like in the first episode we see more of their normal life before the apocalypse again. Yeah, new characters, old characters, new and old relationships, all evolving and changing and growing. So interesting. I love this part of the show, and I wish they showed us more about that. Like, I could have a whole season just about all these characters just messing around. No apocalypse, just drama. I have to say a couple of things about the sets, the locations, the look of the show, and the music, because I think this season was visually so beautiful and well made. I love the colors, I love the contrast between like Hopper's little house and the mall. The music has been always really good in the show, but I think this season it was just like a level higher. It was just better. I love the synth music, which is always either ominous, dramatic, soft, or emotional. I just love the look of the show. This is such a little thing, like a really little detail, but the fonts, when there was something on the screen saying something like Hawkins, Indiana, or Russia. Did you notice how beautiful and nice that font was? I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I think it looked really nice. I was just thinking how freaking talented all the actresses and actors are, because the Mind Flayer clearly was CGI, so it wasn't there, but they're just like acting like it's there. A big round of applause for Dacre Montgomery. Billy. Jesus Christ, he's so good. I think the 80s were really well shown. It has been really good before, but this season, from the music to the looks of the characters and like the mall and what everyone were doing, I love the 80s. I wasn't born in the 80s, obviously, but I love the 80s. I love it so much, and I think this season just really showed the heart of the 80s so goddamn well. I think now we have to talk about the ending. Even though it pains me, the end of this season was really heartbreaking. I was crying out loud on the sofa. I was just like, I think I'm gonna put a couple of clips of me watching the last episode here, because the last episode was really emotional. I love this! Oh yeah, I totally forgot about Susie, because we only see her in the last episode for just a moment when Dustin finally reaches her. She was so cute. I really hope Dustin and Susie stay together, because I think they make a really cute couple, and Susie was so sweet. Oh my god. I love the whole like little musical bit. But yeah, the end. I wasn't really expecting anything to happen to Hopper, because it's Hopper. He is definitely one of my favorite top 3 characters on the show. I see the look in Joyce's eyes when Hopper is still near the machine in the lab, and Hopper is just tearing up and smiling and nodding, and my heart breaks. Alexei and Murray had been talking before how it's gonna explode and you have to be away from it. But Hopper is there. I was crying out loud. I'm not kidding. I was just like, Then we see Elle when Joyce comes up. Elle is clearly looking for Hopper, and Joyce looks at Elle with this sad look in her eyes. I felt that, because like I said, Hopper really, he is a fictional representation of my dad. Losing him in this show broke me. I need to hug my dad, because this feels like I lost him even though I lost Hopper, which I'll go into later, because I have a theory, and I think this theory is true. Then fast forward 3 months and we see Joyce, Will, all the other kids, Jonathan, Nancy, packing up boxes. Joyce has sold the house. They're moving away, and I think this makes sense, and I think they deserve a new beginning. A new start. Everyone's crying while Hopper's letter is going in the background, and I was again ugly crying on my sofa. Elle goes with Will and Joyce, and I think, and Jonathan, of course, like Jonathan is moving away as well. I just always forget to talk about Jonathan. Oh, sorry. They make this little broken family, and I think it's a very beautiful thing, but everyone else is left in Hawkins, and at the same time this feels like a new beginning, but at the same time this feels like an end. And I thought it would end there, but then if you watch the first end credits, there is a scene. This is where my Hopper theory comes into play. We go to Russia, and there is this prison. There is guards in the prison going to pick up someone from their prison cell, and one of the guards, I think, was going towards a door, but then one of the guards says, "Not the American." They go to another person, they take him from his cell, put him in a cage, and we see a demo dog. Woohoo! We missed those guys. We missed them, right? Hell no. And I think the American in one of the cells is Hopper, because actually we didn't see his body in the lab. We saw him being like, and then the machine explodes. But we didn't actually see Hopper. Maybe he survived. Maybe he saved himself, but there was other Russians and the Russians ran away from the lab before the US Army guys came there. Maybe Hopper is in goddamn Russia right now. Hopper might be alive, but he might be in deep and no one knows about it. So I'm stressed again. I'm like Joyce Byers, but level that up to 110. No, 111. But yeah, that's my theory. Hopper is alive and I don't know how the hell he's gonna get out, but he's Hopper. This showing the Demodog and the whole Russian prison and stuff, I think it's foreshadowing a 4th season, and I need a 4th season. I need Stranger Things 4. Not right now. I'm gonna give the Duffer Brothers and the everyone time to make that, but please make us a season 4. I still have to recover from this one. I think I'm gonna watch it again because yes, I've watched it only once and I finished it this morning. These are all of my like thoughts right now. So yeah, my final thoughts about this season. Let's go. Like I said in the beginning, I really enjoyed this season. I love the classic evil Russians plot because I think we needed that. I think it's the 80s, it's the Cold War. It really made sense, and I found it hilarious how there was like the whole evil Russians thing. I really enjoyed it. That's really what was thought in the US in the 80s and like during the Cold War, that the Russians are evil and it was just, I found it funny. I love that they used that. I think the plot was really interesting. I think I need to watch it again also, not just because I love it, but also because I really want to understand it better, and there was just a lot of things happening that I didn't understand right away. I also love how well this is just made, and I absolutely loved the themes in this season. Growing and finding who you are and defining yourself, and especially the kind of a bigger touch on equality between women and men. I think this is very well seen in Nancy's workplace at the Hawkins Post. We really see the issue of men being on top of the hierarchy, and Nancy's just like this coffee machine. She can't write a story because she's a woman, and there is the talk between the boys like, women are all emotion and not logic. It's still an issue, not as big as it was like in the 80s and in the past, but I love that it was brought up. That was really the time when women started to gain more power in workplaces. So I enjoyed that. I really like that. And I love the fact that this show really is for everyone. Not just for girls, not just for boys, not just for this gender. It's for everyone. They really show the true issues of the time. Again, good research, Stranger Things team, that was well made. Also including a little nod to the LGBTQ community. And I think this wasn't forced. It wasn't just like, we want an LGBTQ character. It made sense with the whole character of Robin and how her relationship used to be with Steve in high school. It really made sense, and I think it wasn't forced. I think it was actually really, it surprised me, and it was a good thing because I thought Robin would just be Steve's love interest, but she was more. I think it's also interesting because in the 80s the whole LGBTQ plus thing was very different, so will we see more of that? But yeah, overall I love this season. I need to watch it again. It was so next level. I love that there is something more coming. I know, but now I'm just enjoying this season. I'm gonna watch it again, find out more things about it, and just take it all in and finally kind of get into the discussion. I've been talking here for a very long time, so thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I really hope you enjoyed Stranger Things. Tell me in the comments if I forgot something, or if you have a theory about maybe next season. Yeah, tell me your favorite character as well. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching all the way through this video. I love you very much. You're awesome, and I think I'll see you next Sunday. Bye!